Hello and welcome to In Pursuit of Truth, Episode 1, Introduction. History and truth are concepts that have always fascinated me. As a human being, our intellect seeks truth, and our pursuit of truth is actualized by our physical bodies, which is directed by our free will that seeks goodness for ourselves and what our intellect will understand as true, which simultaneously will be held as good by our free will, and a convergent meaning that we understand as happiness, not a fleeting sense of emotional joy, mind you, but a fulfillment therein, perfect as it may be, a state of happiness. Happiness, truth, good, thus are all interconnected concepts that guide our life's journey on earth. This is nothing less than what guides the unfolding of history. History, by comparison, is on the one hand the story of mankind, but more than this, history is the memory of the actions of humanity. That is, the actions of mankind's pursuit of happiness. For as St. Thomas Aquinas wrote in the Summa, quote, all men agree in desiring the last end, which is happiness. But as to the thing in which this aspect is realized, all men are not agreed. Summa Theologica, Part 1 of Part 2, Question 1, Article 7. From this understanding of happiness as a state of being, a state of fulfillment, another dimension of history can be unlocked where we attempt to peer into the minds, hearts, and souls of men and women who have long since passed away, but not before leaving their mark on history, by perhaps, not solely, depending on who you're talking about, shaping the world through their pursuit of happiness. In this attempt to understand someone else's philosophy of life, we further encounter two more concepts: ideas and first principles. It is impossible to pursue happiness in this world without somehow understanding, even if this understanding is massively underdeveloped, of what it means to be human, what we understand the meaning of suffering to be, the problem of evil, the foundation of the universe either by random chance or divine reason, and the existence and nature of God. Our answers to these questions are our first principles, our assumptions that we take as our certitudes that become in us, our ideas that guide our development as human beings in this life. For as St. John Henry Newman wrote, quote, when an idea, whether real or not, is of a nature to arrest and possess the mind, it may be said to have life, that is, to live in the mind, which is its recipient. But when some great encouragement, whether true or false, about human nature, present good, or government, or duty, or religion, is carried forward into the public throng of men and draws attention, then it is not merely received passively in this or that form into many minds, but it becomes an active principle within them, leading them to an ever new contemplation of itself. End quote. Development of doctrine. Ideas about religion, government, law, order, morals, good, evil, the nature of the universe, human suffering, what it means to be human, and God all become our first principles that begin for us our departure points for our decisions and actions in our life. From these ideas does history turn and influence later generations through the growth in the understanding of these same ideas. Although we take these first principles on probability, our intellect demands assent to what is most probable, and we take the most probable explanation as true and certain. We embrace it with certainty, even though our first principles remain only relatively demonstrable versus being absolutely so. From this vantage point, we can see that first principles become our articles of faith, for all articles of faith are only relatively demonstrable and not absolutely so. For if these first principles were absolutely demonstrable, faith would have no merit. To illustrate, belief in the non-existence of God is just as much an article of faith as holding God to exist. God's existence cannot be absolutely demonstrated, but can only be demonstrated relatively. See Summa Theologica, Part 1, Question 2, Articles 1 to 3. To return to the earlier point I made about history turning on the spread of ideas, we can also understand how the development of ideas guide the actions of mankind throughout history. To illustrate, Socrates is commonly said to have stated, I know that I know nothing, which serves as a proposition for the entirety of Socrates' philosophy, or rather Plato's philosophy. Yet from this statement we can discern the origin of two conflicting ideas. Firstly, that the only thing you can know is what you learn by your senses. Thus we can glimpse in this the foundation for extreme skepticism, even if this is not what Socrates meant. On the other hand, we can understand from Socrates' statement the disposition of mind that begins the learning process, the acknowledgement of one's inherent limitations that simultaneously opens itself up to greater truths than oneself. This understanding of Socrates' statement lends itself further to the natural pursuit of the transcendent, the natural human pursuit of the transcendent, but in such a way that the intellect opens itself up to the existence of the transcendent versus the closing off of the intellect to whatever cannot be tested, learned, or quite simply possessed in the human mind. Ralph McHenry notes in his introduction to select writings of St. Thomas Aquinas, the human mind fashions its concepts and forms propositions about the things of which we have sense experience. End quote. Yet following this up with the statement, quote, that our knowledge can extend beyond the sensible is far from being evident. End quote. The purpose of the exploration of these topics is to inform you how I will interpret the books and events that I will cover in this podcast. This will not be so much a narrative history or summary of whatever book I choose to cover, but a deeper analysis of the ideas that motivated the historical figures that subsequently give form to the matter of historical events, as well as attempting to provide a deeper analysis of the author of a book and the ideas that give form to the matter of the book, and perhaps the influence these ideas and books have on history in our world today. I propose nothing less than to interpret how these books, figures, and historical events have communicated to us different dimensions to our human existence in relation to our world and the universe, and how this alone makes the past as relevant today as when these past events and books were the present and new. The unity of the ideas put forward by these historical figures and books unite the past and the present and the future in a real way, and gives life to our own pursuit of truth and happiness in our life today. I will begin with Homer's Iliad.